I see where you're coming from. Yeah.
So, it's been a few minutes, so do you think you guys want to start, or?
Yeah, Phillip.
Yeah, I'll give an introduction.
Yeah, I'll let Phillip go first.
My name is Phillip. I'm a Christian philosopher and apologist who primarily debates using logic with astrophysics on the existence of God. I have a YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Phillip Kornelis Aman. This debate I have recording, so I will post this debate online. That is the end of my introduction.
Alrighty then.
Nice and short.
So I'll try to keep this one short as well. I am TheSumatranRhino. You can call me Rhino as a nickname for this debate. I am an astronomer, biologist, chemist, and physicist. I study all four of these subjects and know quite a lot about each. I know quite a bit about the Bible and what it teaches, history and politics. I also have a YouTube channel just called TheSumatranRhino. If you want to go check that out, you might need to add channel at the end, so TheSumatranRhino channel. I am also recording this debate for anyone who is listening, and I will be posting on my YouTube channel as well. So what I use for debates, I use biological facts to prove that the Bible is wrong about certain topics, such as Noah's Ark, Adam and Eve, and many other subjects. I can use astronomy and other topics to defeat the religious texts. I am an atheist. I don't believe that there is a God or that there needs to be a God for our universe, or at least my definition as one, for one.
Okay, did you want to do your opening there, Aman?
Yeah, I just have a brief opening, and then I'll just. Oh, hey, do you want to give an opening as well, Rhino?
Yeah, I'll give an opening statement after yours.
Okay, well then it'll be better if you go first because mine's very brief. Then I'll just go straight with asking you questions.
Okay, sure.
So if you want to give your opening first.
Yeah, that sounds fine. So, the logic for God, the thing that I would call a God, my definition of a God, and that should be the universal definition of a God, would be a being who is ultimate, all omnis except for all loving, and would have to be above logic itself, which is also a contradiction, which we will get into later on. And that's why I don't think that there is a God of any religion. That's why I'm an atheist.
Okay. Well, I take the position that the universe is finite in size and is expanding by God, who is infinite in size, making him omnipresent in the universe and outside the universe. So my first question to you is that, in your worldview, do you believe that stars and planets are eternal, or was there a stage in time before the formation of stars and planets?
So yeah, no, stars and planets had a beginning. They came from dust that over time clumped together due to gravity, and they created stars and the planets that we all know. So no, I don't believe stars have been here for eternity or an infinite. I just believe the universe is.
Okay, so then you're left with a particular of energy/matter. My next question to you is, do you believe that the energy/matter before the formation of stars and planets was finite in size, or was it infinite in size?
Yes, there's as of what we know about astrophysics today, the universe has a limited amount of energy and it has a limited amount of mass, but as time progresses that might change.
My question still stands. Was the particular of energy/matter finite in size, or was it infinite in size?
What do you mean by in size? Like how long it's existed? Is it eternal or infinite? What are you talking about?
Infinite. Infinite meaning one particular without a curvature. If you invoke that the energy/matter was finite in size, you then have to propose a second particular outside the curvature. So to reiterate my question, was the energy/matter finite in size, or was it infinite in size in your worldview?
No, I don't think matter and energy have infinite size. I think that they've just been here for infinite time and have been here for eternity.
Okay, so you have a finite in size particular of energy/matter that comports with a secular Big Bang, so you're then left with a singularity. So my next question to you, for the expansion of the singularity to get the Big Bang, was it an inside mechanism or was it an outside mechanism?
It was most likely an inside thing because all of the matter just being compressed in such a tiny area, it would want to expand.
So are you saying that the movement for the Big Bang was an inside cause? If that's what you are invoking, you're then saying that matter consists of life, because life is another word for spontaneous movement without any outside interference. So even if I grant you an expansion, you then have to invoke gravity to get stars and planets. Gravity is also an inside mechanism. So my next question to you is gravity immaterial or material?
As of right now, I wouldn't know the answer to that question. No one has found a graviton. To be fair, no one in the scientific community can tell you what is gravity. We only know what its effects are.
Yeah, my question is a true dichotomy because it comports with the law of excluded middle. So therefore, you only have two options. So to reiterate my question, is gravity immaterial or is it material in your worldview?
It's neither. I wouldn't know the answer to that question. It does it have a beginning? No. I think the laws of physics have always been here, but no, gravity is not a material thing. It's not an immaterial thing. It's one of the four forces of the universe, and as of right now, no one knows what gravity is. We just know its effect.
Without using the word God, how would you describe what is outside the immaterial and the material?
Nothingness outside the universe would be nothingness.
So you're saying, no, I'm talking about the cause, the mechanism to get you stars and planets. Are you saying nothingness is the cause for stars and planets?
No, the matter and the energy that cause for the matter to come together to make the stars and the planets have just always existed.
Hang on, so are you saying that the cosmos is eternal?
Yes, in a way.
Well, the zeroth law of thermodynamics, due to thermal equilibrium, debunks that worldview because there are different temperatures across cosmos. So just to elaborate on that, because there are over septillion stars, the temperature of the cosmos will come to an equal state. So therefore, the cosmos cannot be eternal. What is your response?
Yes, it can. Energy in those areas have just because we know in the second law of thermodynamics that the universe is going to over time go into a state with into a low energy state. The energy won't go anywhere. It will be spread out so much that over the universe that nothing is going to be able to function. Nothing will be able to move at that point in space or time. There's just no energy for objects to move at that point. So in this case of a universe, all of the energy and all of the energy.
So your mic's cutting out.
Right. Hold on.
Can you just repeat that?
So what I would believe is that all of the energy and the mass in the universe comes together upon itself. So the zeroth law is also kind of beaten by the second law because energy just expands out over time, and there's cold spots in areas because there are big voids in the universe, of course, and there's reasons for that. But that doesn't mean that the universe isn't eternal. It just means that there are cold spots in the universe, and there's reasonable explanations to tell you why that's there. The second law of thermodynamics states that energy will go from a high energy state to a low energy state. And when the universe is eternal, all of the energy uses itself, kind of, and comes back to the singularity point. Also, gravity will take everything in.
So hang on, just to clarify, are you still holding to an eternal cosmos? Stars and planets being all eternal?
No, the stars and the planets are not eternal. They had a beginning. Just the universe itself and all the matter and energy within it is eternal and infinite. In time, not mass.
Okay, so you have an infinite structure of matter. You still need an outside prime mover, not contingent on that matter, to choose and manipulate that matter.
No, you don't.
Because matter can't move itself to make finite in size particles. A pool of water cannot make ice cubes inside of itself.
Yes, it can.
Outside prime mover, not contingent on matter. You need an immaterial cause for the material. And that immaterial has to be omnipotent with a consciousness to choose to interact with matter and to have the power to manipulate matter to give you stars and planets.
No. Okay, so your first example was a lake creating its own ice cubes. That would just be a lake reaching a low energy state and turning into a solid. Stars being able to create themselves, we know that gravity pulls dust particles together, then huge rocks, and then boulders, and then the stars and the planets are formed in that way. You can test this by looking into a super high powerful telescope and looking on the other side of the universe and watching a star form. It's that simple. You can do this, and you don't need a god to tell everything in the universe to do something. Matter can produce its own matter. RNA produces itself. It creates its own chains of carbon and hydrogen and oxygen, and it eventually will form into double strains. It will split off, and that's reproduction for RNA. So yes, matter that's not alive can move, and it can create without a god.
You made the assertion of gravity. The belief behind gravity is an inside mechanism. So my question to you is that, in your worldview, is gravity immaterial or is it material?
I wouldn't know. No one knows what gravity is.
There's no third option. It's either material or immaterial.
Well, I would say it's most likely immaterial.
Okay, so you have the immaterial. For the immaterial to interact with matter requires an omnipotence with a consciousness. Therefore, God. So gravity is just an assigned name to gravity. Gravity is just an assigned name to God.
No, gravity can exist with or without a god.
You said gravity is immaterial and an inside mechanism. You are alluding to Hindus because some Hindus believe in an eternal cosmos, which can easily be debunked. However, in an atheistic worldview, your assertion of gravity requires an omnipotence with a consciousness to choose to interact with matter and to manipulate matter.
Okay, so gravity doesn't have a consciousness, one, or else it would be doing whatever it wants, and it can't simply do that. It doesn't have a consciousness. It doesn't feel. It doesn't have pain or anything. And what is it? Gravity doesn't have the fundamental properties of a god. It's not omnipotent. It's not what is it? Omniscient. It's just everywhere at once. That's the only omni I would say gravity has, but that's because it's a fundamental force of the nature in our universe. So no, it's not a god. That's not a god example.
Even if I grant you an omnipotence without a consciousness, all you will get is one particular of gravity. So you have one force compressing into the center, but because you have infinite in size matter, that gravity is not going to do anything. There are over septillion stars and planets. You need that immaterial requires a consciousness for there to be universal consistency.
No, it doesn't.
That being over septillion stars and planets.
See, no law of physics says that there needs to be God to keep gravity. There's no law in physics that says that. There's no law in any religious text that says you need a God for gravity.
I said in your assertion of gravity is just an assigned name to an immaterial, omnipotent cause.
No, it's not. It's a fundamental force of the universe.
Would be God.
No, no. Gravity's not a god. It's a fundamental.
You have infinite in size and matter. You can't get finite in size particulars inside of that matter. You need an outside cause. You can't have a solid sphere inside a second solid sphere.
That's not what gravity does, though.
Yes, the belief of gravity is that it compresses inwards. It's an inside mechanism. But because you reject a consciousness, all you will get is one tidal force. You're trying to get a black hole, but because you have infinite matter, outside the singularity of the black hole is more matter. So there wasn't a black hole to begin with.
Well, we know absolutely that black holes exist. You don't need an outside force. That's the thing. You don't. Gravity does its own thing. It just pulls objects together. It pulls objects towards the ground or the center, and that's pretty much all gravity does. It's that simple. You don't need an outside force for the force of the universe to do its thing. You don't need an outside force for electromagnetism to work. For example, magnets will still work if there isn't a god.
You're saying that a solid shape appeared inside an already solid shape.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yes, it is.
How?
You have infinite in size and matter, and then you're invoking gravity, an immaterial inside cause. That immaterial to interact with matter requires an omnipotence. And in order to get hydrogen and helium, you need the compression of all that matter. So you're invoking a second shape inside an already structure.
I mean, you could...
To give you a visualization.
Are you talking about the layers of stars?
Well, we are on before the formation of stars and planets.
Okay, so there are layers to stars that create circles on top of each other because gravity gets stronger the more mass that is in the center, and also because of the already a bunch of weight above it. That's how reactions within a star work, because there's just so much pressure above it that the hydrogen atoms fuse together to become helium, and this over time goes through a gradual process to give you stars that have an iron core. And iron can't fuse, and then the star has to either A, turn into a black hole, B, explode and turn to a white dwarf, or the other alternatives is just shut off outer layers and turn into a red dwarf. That's why you have different layers in a star. A sphere within a sphere is what we're calling it.
You made an assertion of a chemical reaction, but you have no gaps inside of that infinite in size matter. And therefore, there is no chemical reaction.
I never said that the mass is infinite. I just said the time of which that mass is here is infinite and eternal.
So but the mass is just the energy / matter. can't move on its own. You need an outside cause.
Matter does move on its own. It can do so.
The two red flags there. If you see your chair moving on its own, the conclusion that you would come up with is that your chair consists of life, correct?
No.
You're saying that matter can move on its own, that it has life. So therefore, the analogy of a chair moving on its own would mean that the chair consists of life.
No, I'm not saying all matter can move on its own. The gravity can make matter move, one, and two, matter, like chemical processes, they move on their own all the time. They gain a bunch of energy and they move. Like I said, RNA creates itself. There are multiple chemical processes that create themselves out of carbon and hydrogen and oxygen.
You made another assertion of gravity. Even if I grant you that gravity is immaterial, you're still not going to get a gap to get a chemical reaction. Because gravity, the belief behind gravity is an inside mechanism. You need an outside cause.
You don't.
To manipulate that matter to get you over septillion stars and planets.
But you see, gravity already does that. It pulls objects together.
Well, my question still stands. Is gravity immaterial or material?
I would say I don't know. There's no one knows what gravity is. Not even the smartest people in the world know what gravity is, because we only know the effect of it. It is a force of nature. It just does exist.
Yeah, gravity is a belief, because you can only explain the effect. You cannot demonstrate what it actually is or what it looks like.
But you see, you can still prove it.
I can grant you gravity, but I can't grant you that an inside mechanism.
Well, but you see, we can know that gravity is a thing. We know it's a thing. Every scientist would say it's a thing because you can repeatedly prove it over and over and over again. What it is, though, what it looks like, isn't possible at the moment. I would say that in the future we can look at gravity, but as of right now, no one knows what gravity looks like. No one knows what it is. We just know its effect. That's how you can prove it's there.
But in your worldview, gravity is immaterial. Therefore, for the immaterial to interact with matter requires an omnipotence.
Why so?
And going back, that's a brute fact. For the immaterial, for something invisible to interact with matter requires an omnipotence.
Well,
there's no getting around that.
But why? You haven't answered my question. But why?
Why would it not be? Why would it not be a brute fact that for something invisible to interact with matter requires an omnipotence?
Because like I said, there are forces of nature in the universe. And also, if you want to make that same assertion, then I could make myself invisible, move an object, and now prove that there is a God.
You need an outside, going back to the infinite structure of matter.
No, hold on.
In your worldview.
No, we're not. I don't want to move off this subject yet. You're saying that you need an omnipotent God, and to have an invisible object move an object. So why so? Why do you need a God to have gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and the weak nuclear force, to interact with all atoms, quarks, and beings within our universe? I want to understand why. Why is that a fact?
Because God in the Bible is said to be immaterial, all-powerful / omnipotent. Therefore,
I can already debunk the Bible
immaterial.
another day, but I'm not talking about the Bible right now. We're talking about logic. Now, now why does it? Just because God has the same, not even that. Gravity, the strong and the weak, nuclear forces, and electromagnetism are not omnipotent. They're not omnipresent. They're not omniscient. They're not all loving, and they are not I mean, they are all omnipresent, but that's just because of the expansion of the universe. But what I'm trying to ask you is, why is it so? Why do you have to have a God who shares one characteristic with the rest of the four forces of nature? Why do you need so?
We are on the topic of cosmogony. So we are discussing a God in general. You can discuss which God that is later. However, going back to we are in your worldview. So going back to the infinite in size matter.
Philip, you're still not answering my question because you are saying you are objectively stating trying to objectively state a fact that can be logically disproven with just one example, because you're saying you need a omnipotent, all-loving, all-knowing, all the omnis God for one omnipotent, which is omnipresent, for the four fundamental forces of nature. So I'm gonna ask again, why do you need God to have the four fundamental forces of nature if they only share one trait with God?
Your assertion of natural forces, are they immaterial or material?
Yes, they're immaterial.
Okay, so for the immaterial to interact with matter requires an omnipotence.
Why?
Therefore, God.
No, but why? You're not answering the question.
Earlier,
but
for the
why?
invisible to interact with matter requires an omnipotence.
No,
Immaterial means something. Immaterial means something that you cannot see, but you know that it exists. God fits that category.
That doesn't mean he exists,
he meets the prerequisites to be
because you
omnipotent.
can't prove because as far as you're stating so far, you have not proved God's existence. I've proved that gravity is a thing. I can prove the strong force is real. I can prove to you that the weak force is real, and I can prove to you electromagnetism is real. Now you can't see the last three fundamental forces I told you. The strong force is represented by the gluon. The weak force is represented by the W and the Z boson, and we know by scientists the electromagnetic force is controlled by the photon. That's how you see. That's how we have radiation. That's how we have magnets. You can prove this, and you don't have to look at any of the forces. All of these gluons are immaterial. That's why photons can go as fast as they can. We know they're all immaterial, but there's still something there. And that's why I said I don't know what gravity is at the moment. We don't know if it's a particle yet, or is it a wave. Quantum physics and mechanics are weird. But going back to the statement I said earlier, if all the forces are immaterial, why do you need a God for them to exist? I want to stay on this topic before we move on.
The immaterial to interact and manipulate matter requires an omnipotence.
Why?
Yes or no?
No.
Why?
Because you don't need a God to do that. The universe has always existed, and so have these
No,
four
I didn't
laws.
say that. I said, for the immaterial, for something invisible to interact and manipulate matter requires an omnipotence. Yes or no?
No, it doesn't.
Why?
Because just because something's invisible and immaterial doesn't mean it needs a God for it to exist. It could have always been. It
I
could
didn't
have always
say
existed.
that. I said for the immaterial, for something invisible to interact with matter requires an omnipotence.
No,
Yes
it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Why?
Because the forces.
What?
Because the forces control parts of the universe, and they just always existed. They don't need to have a creator. They don't need to have a creator. Your assertion is that because they share one trait in common with God, that doesn't.
Your assertion of natural forces are immaterial. Therefore, the immaterial to interact with matter requires an omnipotence.
No, it doesn't.
A consciousness for there to be universal consistency.
No, you don't. You don't need a
Teleology.
consciousness for that. The universal consistency is, as far as we know, is unchanging. You don't need a God for that.
Yeah, you need a consciousness who is unchanging, eternal, and omnipotent.
No, the universe is just
And who is
unchanging.
outside.
The ways that the universe is set out, and like if gravity was off a point by 1%, life wouldn't exist or stars wouldn't exist. Yes, it would. You would still have stars if gravity was 1 point off.
You're cutting out.
Okay, so okay. The immaterial. What? Okay, back to your question. You're asserting.
So to play this out, you have two particulars. The first being energy/matter, and the second being the immaterial, which you invoke as gravity. They are sitting on top of each other with no gaps in between. For the immaterial particular to interact with the physical particular requires a consciousness to choose to interact with the first particular.
Why?
And an omnipotence to manipulate and interact with the physical particular.
Philip, you still haven't. We've been sitting here for 10 minutes talking about the same thing. You haven't explained why you need an immaterial, omnipotent God to have.
You're trying to get out of your own world. You're trying to get out of your own worldview.
No.
We are stuck in your worldview. We are on time zero here.
No, I'm just using your example.
We are before the formation of stars and planets.
No, I'm trying to ask you a question because you're trying to move on and I see what you're trying to do. I need you to answer this question that I have for you. Why do you need an immaterial, omnipotent God to have immaterial forces?
You need an outside immaterial cause for the movement of matter. Because an inside cause cannot make finite and size particulars inside of itself. A pool of water cannot make more shapes inside of itself of different material, that being hydrogen and helium. You need an outside cause, an unmoved mover, with an omnipotence and a consciousness, therefore God.
Look at this. I'm in a debate. Go somewhere. Go. The point I'm trying to make here is that you don't need a God to have these four forces. They've always existed. That's the point. These are immaterial forces, but they do have something that they represent. Like I said, photons exist. That's how we get light and electromagnetism and everything else. While a photon exists, it is immaterial. It doesn't have mass, and it is, as far as I'm aware, is invisible without. It's only detectable. You can only detect it. You can't look at it. That you don't need God to make a light. You don't need God to make lights. You don't need God to have these forces. They've just always existed. That's what I believe. Because
yes, you do.
No, you don't. You still haven't explained why you need an omnipotent God to create the four forces of nature in our universe.
Because all you're stuck with is infinite in size matter. You then need an outside cause to get a structure of energy/light. So Genesis 1:3, God said, "Let there be light," debunks your whole position.
No, because now you're putting me in your worldview, which I can easily debunk. I can easily debunk the Bible right here, which is not what we're going to be talking about today. We are talking about the logic of this universe. Now, please tell me, stop dodging the question. Why do you need an immaterial, omnipotent God to create the four fundamental forces of the universe?
You need an immaterial, omnipotent consciousness to interact and choose to interact with matter, who is outside of matter.
Why?
You've been invoking an inside cause. That's the only option. This is a true dichotomy, the law of excluded middle. It's either A or not A. Therefore, if it's not an inside cause, you're only left with an outside cause. Therefore, God.
No, I already told you this. You don't need any of that. The four fundamental forces have just always existed, with the energy and the mass in the universe.
Your forces are immaterial.
Yes, your point. You don't need a God to create
for
them.
The immaterial, for the immaterial for something are your laws invisible? Your answer is yes. So, for the invisible to interact with matter requires an omnipotence, correct?
No, it doesn't. You still haven't told me why, though.
No, my question to you is why.
Why don't you need a God for the forces to be here? Because the forces, along with the matter and the energy in the universe, have always existed. How did I come to that conclusion? Because something can't come from nothing, and what I would consider a God can't exist because of the logical contradictions that come with a God. So I have put together research, and it seems logical to conclude that the universe has always existed and all of its laws, and the possibility, the fine-tuning argument can be easily debunked with multiverses.
I've already debunked your eternal cosmos.
No, you haven't.
You're been invoking a time and stage before the formation of stars and planets. Correct?
No. Like I said, the matter and the energy in the universe has always existed.
You're going back to an eternal cosmos.
An eternal universe,
all the stars and planets.
The universe is, as far as I know, eternal.
The zeroth law of thermodynamics. You have many different temperatures fluctuating across the cosmos. If the cosmos was eternal, there would be an equilibrium between the heat and the cold.
No, because energy spreads out over time, and as we know, the universe is expanding out, and so there can be, as heat expands out, and as the distance between galaxies and stars come to form, there's more energy dense area, creating voids. There's huge voids in our universe.
Hang on. So you've gone from a cosmos to a universe. So for that universe to be expanding, inside of that universe are all the stars and planets eternal?
No, only the mass and the energy within it.
Yeah, okay, then you have to go back to the point of least expansion. Your assertion of the Big Bang is easily debunked because you've been invoking an inside cause to get the expansion. So you're saying that matter consists of life, that it moved on its own?
No.
Even if I grant you that, you still need...
My point is that...
Hang on. Even if I grant... Yep.
My point is that if
what is your point?
My point is that the universe is eternal, and so in which that we have constant big bangs and big crunches. That's why it expands, and it will one day crunch back together into one universe. That's just it can be proven using just using your own logic, because we know something can't come from nothing. That's objectively true, and we know that there is no such thing as a God. So how do you have a universe? It's always eternal. It's gone through infinite and eternal big bangs to big crunches. The matter and the energy in the universe has always been together, and it does not debunk any law of physics, nor does it debunk the zeroth or the second law of thermodynamics.
Was the cause for the expansion of the singularity an inside mechanism, or was it an outside mechanism?
Well, I would be unable to tell you. I wasn't there, but in the future I would be able to tell you when we figure it out. I just know that the singularity would bounce in and out of itself. And the most logical answer to that question that I'm thinking about it would be that the energy within it would want to expand out. Matter would want to expand out, and all the energy in the matter that was condensed within it.
But if you invoke an inside cause, you're then saying that matter consists of life. And even if I grant you that, you still have to invoke gravity to get you hydrogen and helium.
Yeah, gravity
However, we've
always
already
existed
gone
with
in
those.
circles with your assertion of gravity. Therefore, your only option left is an outside cause.
No,
That outside particular has to be immaterial, not contingent on matter. And for the immaterial to interact and choose to interact with matter requires an omnipotence and a consciousness, therefore God.
no, because they have internal forces that have always existed for all of time and eternity, and will continue to exist for all time and eternity.
Your assertion of forces are immaterial.
That doesn't mean that there needs to be a God. We're now going back to that that question I asked you earlier. Why does immaterial forces need to be made by an immaterial being? Because it doesn't. You haven't given me an answer for that.
You've been invoking natural forces or natural laws. These laws that you are invoking are invisible. Therefore, they are immaterial. So,
if someone becomes
regardless if
invisible,
those
do they
laws
become
are inside of that
immaterial?
matter or outside of that matter, they still require an omnipotence. So that just goes
No, you're
back to
not
my
answering.
earlier
You keep
question.
dodging the question. You're not answering the question.
No,
You're no. Hold on.
dodging
You're
my
not.
question.
You keep saying over and over again.
You're still circumventing from
No, you
why
keep telling me
is
the
it
same
that
thing
for the
over and over
invisible,
again because they are because the four forces of nature are immaterial. Therefore, because God is also because the God you claim is immaterial, therefore God is makes these forces and therefore no it doesn't. No it doesn't at all. It doesn't mean that there is a God.
for the invisible to interact with matter requires an omnipotence, yes or
No,
no?
no, you don't.
Why?
Because the four fundamental forces don't need to have a creator. They don't need to have a god for them to enact. They just do. They've always existed.
Your forces are immaterial.
Correct.
That just goes back to my question still stands. The invisible to interact with matter requires an omnipotence.
No, it doesn't. You still haven't answered that
Yes or
question,
no?
though. No, you still haven't answered that
I'm
question.
asking you the question.
Okay, the answer to
I'm
that is because the
asking
four
you
fundamental forces don't change over time. Gravity doesn't change over time, at least in our universe. And it is it is invisible. It's omniscient. I mean, not even omniscient. It's omnipresent because it's all over the universe because it expanded with the universe. It's a force. It's always existed, no matter whether anybody likes it or not. It's always existed. It's one of the four forces of the universe. It's universal. It's not. That doesn't mean you need a god for it to be created. It just always has. It's always has been.
we are before the formation of stars and planets.
Yeah, even before the formation of stars and planets, you still have these four forces.
Matter.
Even before the planets, even before all matter, even before
are your natural forces / laws immaterial?
yes, they have particles that represent them that you can detect in super colliders, but they are still immaterial. They don't have mass. They don't have they don't make up space in our universe as far as interacting with them. Like you can have a jar of light if you wanted to, but it would eventually be able to leave because it's massless. So yes, they are eternalist. They are infinite. The four forces are.
It takes a consciousness to make the observation of laws.
Why?
Your laws are still immaterial.
Why? Why do you need a god to make it?
I'm saying that an immaterial omnipotence with a consciousness is the necessary prime mover.
Why?
Your assertion of natural laws are immaterial. So my question to you is that in your worldview, is the immaterial invisible? Yes or no?
The immaterial is, yes, it's invisible to the naked eye, but you can still detect it. You can detect the forces of the universe.
How can you detect something that is invisible?
In terms of you can't see it, yes, that you can't see the photon. You can only see what it emits, which is light. But you can detect light. I mean, you can always obviously just look at the sun. You can detect the electromagnetic force using a magnet or a particle collider. You can detect the strong force in atoms. As of now, we can't detect gravity because it's a The particles that may be for gravity are too small for hydrogen colliders to find. But as of now, the four fundamental forces are invisible to see, but they are not invisible to detect. You can still detect the fundamental forces of our universe, which are those particles, which are the basis for the universe, and they've always existed.
Yes, energy can convert into matter, but for the immaterial meaning, a particular outside of energy / matter. Therefore, you cannot detect it, making the immaterial omnipotent, even in an atheistic worldview.
No, you are wrong.
Yes.
The four fundamental forces did not have a creator. You don't need a creator for them to exist.
Are your four fundamental forces immaterial?
Yes, but you don't need a creator for those forces to be around. No, you don't.
So for the invisible to interact with matter requires an omnipotence?
Now that goes back to my question. Why do, in your worldview, you need an omnipotent being to create immaterial forces? Why? You still haven't answered the question. You keep dodging it with other questions. Give me a straight answer this time. If not, we'll move on.
Immaterial omnipotence with a consciousness to choose to interact with matter, to have the power to manipulate matter. You have two particulars with no gaps in between. For there to be a shift in time from 0 to 1 requires an eternal consciousness.
No, you still haven't
Therefore,
answered the question. No, you're talking about immaterial forces such as time and the four fundamental forces. You did not say, "Oh, you. This is the reason why you need a creator for them." You just said God created them.
I haven't been invoking natural forces. That's your assertion.
Because the four fundamental forces are important for the universe to exist in the first place. They are how the laws in the universe come to be. This is why we have atoms, due to the strong force. The reason why you're able to talk to me right now is because of gravity. The reason why you're able to exist is because of the weak force and the electromagnetic force. And the reason why we're able to have huge particle colliders is because of the electromagnetic force. All these forces are important to our universe. And as far as I know, and what I've studied, and what I can verifiably prove, is that the four forces, time, all of the energy and mass in the universe, have always existed. Because the what I would call a god can't exist, and something can't come from nothing. That's how I state my statement. And you're now saying that no, you need a god because God made the forces. That is not a logical conclusion to come to.
All these forces you invoked are all inside mechanisms. You're not going to get finite in size particles inside of that infinite in size structure of matter.
I already told you, matter is not infinite in mass. It's just always existed. The amount of mass and energy that's in our universe will be constant. It's just always existed. It's eternal.
Black hole isn't going to do anything to infinite in size matter. You don't get gravity. I'm not granting you gravity anymore.
No, you do get gravity from a black hole, and black holes expel material as they die out. It's called Hawking radiation. That's how information gets back into the universe. But it's such a slow process. No one will live long enough to even see the process happen once. So no, black holes lose mass over time.
Upside down road safety cone. No, to give you a visualization of a black hole, you have an upside down road safety cone, and the pointy bit of the safety cone would be the singularity. However, outside the pointy bit / singularity is more matter. Therefore, there wasn't a black hole to begin with. You need an outside cause, not contingent on matter, with an omnipotence and a consciousness, therefore God.
No, it doesn't mean that. What you are stating could have always existed. And what I call a god is logically impossible.
What always existed?
You said what?
What has always existed?
Energy, matter, and all of the forces and time, and all of the laws that are stated in our universe. They're just infinite. They've always existed. Not in mass, but they've always existed and are eternal and infinite.
I can grant you that. So to play that out, you have two particulars. The first being the material and the second being the immaterial. There are no gaps in between, so there is no third particular. So for the immaterial particular to interact and to choose to interact with the physical particular requires a consciousness.
Why?
And an omnipotence.
Why? You still haven't told me why.
For the invisible to interact with matter requires an omnipotence. That is the brute fact.
No, but why? But why? You're not answering the question. But why? I'm about to be done with this subject, then we can move on.
Think about this logically. For something invisible, meaning no mass, you cannot see it. For that invisible particular to interact and manipulate matter to get stars and planets requires omnipotence.
No, it doesn't. You still no. These forces, I think, have always existed. I can prove that they've always existed. But what you're asserting is that an immaterial thing has to go from an immaterial conscious being. But why? You still haven't told me, but why? All of you said we can logically come to that conclusion. But with what evidence?
Even if I grant you that material would have a consciousness to choose to interact with matter and for there to be universal consistency, that being over octillion stars and planets. So that immaterial comports with a mind, an eternal mind outside of matter, therefore God.
No, you still don't understand. The matter and the forces don't need to be connected to a God. They exist for no particular reason. Like the universe doesn't exist for any particular reason in my worldview. It just does. It's just always existed. If it didn't, then I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. You don't need a God to have the four fundamental forces of nature. And I would like to move on from this discussion because you still haven't explained to me why, and I've asked you about 7 times now. So let's just move on. What is your next point?
No, for the forces to be immaterial and to interact with matter requires an omnipotence with a consciousness.
No, it doesn't. You don't answer the question. Why does it need to have one?
If you reject that, all you're left is infinite in size, energy / matter that can't move.
You still don't
get stars and planets.
No, it doesn't. The four forces have just always existed.
Outside cause.
No, you don't. You still haven't explained why you need to have an outside force. You just said you do.
Response?
You need to have an outside force. That's all you've said. You need to have an outside force because God created it, therefore God.
You've been invoking inside mechanisms. I've debunked all of those assertions. Your only option left is an outside mechanism.
You still haven't even answered the question that I asked you.
Immaterial. If it was not immaterial, then what is your question?
The same question I've already asked you 8 to 7 times now. Why do you need a God to have all of them, to have the four fundamental forces of nature?
Hang on, you're breaking.
Why do you need...
Repeat your question?
Why do you need a God to have the four fundamental forces of nature?
Is it just me, or is it...
He's breaking up a bit, but I can hear him, though.
Hold on.
Okay, can you repeat your question, Rhino?
Why do you need a God to have the four fundamental forces of nature?
You need an immaterial omnipotence with a consciousness.
Why?
I'm just listing the attributes to a god, an outside prime mover. Matter cannot move on its own to get stars and planets. You need an outside cause.
Yes, matter does move in space. It's called gravity.
You
Gravity
can't
brings
get
these two together. Gravity brings objects together. You can repeatedly prove this in space. That
We
NASA
have gas.
astronauts
No,
have done this on the International Space Station.
we're not. You're jumping. No, you're jumping to square 7. We are at time 0 before the formation of stars and planets. Therefore, you have no gaps. So you're still stuck at 0 with an infinite in size structure of matter.
I never said
requires
matter
an
was
outside
infinite. You keep
cause.
saying that you have an infinite structure of matter. No, matter is not infinite in the term of mass. It is infinite and eternal in the term of time, meaning it always existed.
Okay, so then you're left with finite in size matter, and outside of that finite in size matter would be an infinite in size immaterial property. So you then have to invoke an inside cause to get the Big Bang. However, even if I grant you an expansion, you're then saying that matter consists of life, for there to be movement from the inside, and then you have to assert gravity to get hydrogen and helium. I've already debunked your position of gravity.
No, you haven't.
Therefore, you get no stars and planets. Is your assertion of gravity immaterial or material?
I've already answered that question. Yes, gravity is immaterial, and it's just all over the place, just because of the expansion of the universe. It just does. It just
be
is.
all over the place. It has to be in that finite in size structure of matter.
No, gravity is all over the
to be
universe. It's in a gravity is all over the universe. You can't debunk that. It's all over the universe. It happens here. It will happen on a planet
But the
13.9
belief behind
billion light
gravity
years
is
away
hang on.
because
But
it's
the
the
belief
force of the
behind
universe.
gravity is the movement of mass. So therefore, you're then saying that the immaterial has mass.
No, gravity
That is a
doesn't.
contradiction.
No, gravity doesn't have mass. It just pulls objects together. It pulls you towards the ground.
You said that you made the assertion that gravity is all over the place. Therefore, it is outside the expansion of the Big Bang.
No, it's all over the place in the universe.
Outside, hang on. For that outside cause, that outside immaterial particular to interact with matter requires an omnipotence and a consciousness to choose to interact with matter.
No, because you don't understand.
Hang on, wait. Because those two particulars were together from the start with no gaps in between. So therefore, it requires a consciousness to choose to interact with matter.
No, because you keep making the same assertion. You keep making this assertion that just because gravity is immaterial, that means that it shares one property with God, therefore there has to be a God to create all this. That doesn't make sense. That's not using logic. You can come to a reasonable conclusion that the four fundamental forces in the universe have always existed. The laws and the forces of the universe have always existed. I would like to. We keep going in circles. We keep going in circles. I would like to move on to the next point because we keep going in circles. We've been talking about the same thing for 30 minutes. I would like to move on because you keep giving me the same thing. The same.
Circumventing.
No, we're just going in circles. You're not understanding, one, and two, you keep bringing up the same illogical fallacy that doesn't make any sense. I've already told you the four fundamental forces of the universe have always existed. They just have, along with all of the matter and the energy in the universe. Now you're telling me just because they're immaterial, that one reason it has to be God because God is immaterial. It makes no sense.
I've granted you these immaterial forces. However, for the immaterial to interact with matter, immaterial meaning invisible. For the invisible to interact with matter requires an omnipotence and a consciousness to choose.
I'm gonna ask one more time, and we're gonna move on. Why? Why do you need an immaterial, omnipotent God to have an immaterial law of the universe?
You need an immaterial, omnipotent consciousness.
Just answer the question.
Interact and choose. I have.
No, you haven't. You keep saying you need an immaterial God to make these forces, therefore God. That's an illogical fallacy.
You need an immaterial, omnipotent consciousness.
Why?
Those lists of attributes reports with a God.
Why? You haven't answered the question.
The same thing as your why. He wants to know why that assertion is true.
For the invisible,
you can't just keep reasserting it.
It's a brute fact. I can repeat it all I want. For the invisible,
if it's a brute fact, then you should have an argument to prove that it's a brute fact.
The invisible to interact with matter requires an omnipotence. Yes or no?
No, it doesn't. And I would like to move on to a new topic because I've just been repeating myself for the past 30 minutes.
You said no. Why? Elaborate on your no.
What? Listen,
the invisible to interact with matter requires an omnipotence. Your response is no, so you need to elaborate on your no.
No, you don't need an omnipotent God to have an invisible law of the universe. No, it doesn't. It's just always existed. I just debunked that. So I would like to move on from this now because you're not answering my question.
We are on the topic before the form. You don't have stars and planets.
Yes, you can. You can have planets without a God. You can have gravity without a God.
Stars and planets.
Jesus.
You have no stars and planets in your worldview. So my question still stands.
What question?
For the invisible to interact with matter requires an omnipotence.
That's not a question. That's your that's what you're trying to say as an answer. No, you don't need a God for the fundamental forces of the universe to exist. Why? Because the forces because you don't need to make a God for something that's eternal. Why do you I can ask the same question with your God. Why can't God have not had a creator? Oh, you don't have an answer to that, do you? I have an answer to mine. Because what you would say to that is that God has always existed. He's eternal. He's omnipotent. What I would say about my fundamental forces is that they've always existed, and they have the same properties all over the universe. I'm done discussing this because I've already told you the same thing four times, and I've asked you the same question 7 to 8 times now. I would like to move on.
I will explain. You're cutting out. I will explain how God is eternal without any interruptions. So there are 2 reasons here. God is eternal because absolute nothingness as a starting point is impossible. Because if absolute nothingness created all these infinite in size particulars, that wouldn't be random. So you have A, B, and C coming into existence simultaneously of each other. Therefore, it is not random for multiple infinite in size particulars to spawn into existence. Therefore, the only alternative is an eternal God.
That's not what I'm debating about today. I'm debating whether your logic concludes that there is a God. That's what I'm debating about. Not what if God is eternal. That by that definition of a God, yes, he would be. I don't disagree with you on that.
So to give you an understanding on God's eternal attribute is that of a dream. When you are in a dream, you don't question how you got into that dream. You just are moving in that dream. God just is. He is not contingent on anything.
I never said that. I never said he didn't.
That he is not a human. He is not a human. He's always been moving.
I never said he didn't because that's what God is. That's what a God would be. but I am asking you, and I'm actually, you know what? I'm not even going to keep asking you this question. I'm ready to move on to whatever your next point is.
Well, I could tell you. So we are jumping to theology, to which God this is.
None of them.
No, you have to concede to God before we jump to theology. Do you have to grant me that God exists for this debate?
No, I don't. That's my argument. He doesn't. He logically doesn't
We
exist.
have been discussing we haven't been discussing religion. We've been discussing astronomy. For us to jump to religion / theology, you have to grant me God for this debate.
No, I don't. I
God?
just no. The debate was, can
So then
you
what is your
logically come to the
objection?
conclusion that there is a God, not any particular God of any Bible, which we can move on to that. But the debate was, can we prove God with logic? And I would say no. You say yes. So tell me.
We have been debating a God in general.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. A God in general.
Yes. So for us to discuss which God that is jumping to theology.
No,
So
the logical of which
before we jump to theology.
No, the argument with, can we prove God with logic? Not the God of the Bible, not the God of Hinduism, not the God of the Bali something religion. No, we are discussing if a God is logical, and by my definition of a God, I would say no. So we can move to theology later, but you first have to prove to me which God can we have a God logically. By my definition or your definition, whichever you want to use. I would say mine because it's a universal concept.
Astronomy, cosmogony is the topic on a God in general. Theology is a discussion on which God that is.
Fine, we can move to theology. You know what? I will grant you for this debate. I don't believe that there is one, but I will grant you for this debate that there is a God. For this debate, I will grant you that. I don't believe so, but I will grant you that there is a God. Now you have to prove to me which God it is, and how do you know it is?
Okay, I take the position that the God of the Bible meets the prerequisites to be outside the law of logic, more specifically the law of non-contradiction and the law of identity, because he is ad infinitum. Thanks to Genesis 1:1. So to elaborate on this, God created the heavens and the earth. He created a finite in size planet Earth, and he can expand it into infinity, making him ad infinitum. Therefore, that debunks all other religions who hold to eternal matter. So then you're left with a starting point of energy / matter. And because the Bible gets it correct in the very first sentence, that puts the Bible as the perfect starting point in any theological discussion. What is your response?
You would be wrong about the statement that every other religion is wrong. There are countless other religions that think that God created everything, and what is it? And that he can do anything that the Christian God can do. Also, not all Hindus believe that the universe is eternal. Some of them believe that that their gods, plural, made the universe. And there are many other religions such as Sikhism, Shabakism, who also are monotheistic to a certain degree. What about Judaism, Islam, any other religious category that fits into the Abrahamic religions? Are they all wrong? Are all wrong now? And so you still have a lot of religions with one God that claims the same thing as the Bible.
You're breaking up really bad there, Rhino.
My apologies.
Did you want to maybe pop out and pop back in, or just go for it and see what happens? It's intermittent. So most of the time it's good, and then you get bouts of breaking up. So let's keep going and see what happens.
I'm just gonna.
You brought 2 points. Okay. Judaism is the Torah. The Torah is the first 5 books of the Old Testament. you brought Islam. The Quran is debunked with Galatians 1 verse 8 in the New Testament. So to elaborate on this, Muslims believe that Christians are worshipping the same God as them because the Quran mentions the Old Testament multiple times. And because the Quran was completed 600 years after the New Testament, Galatians 1 verse 8 in the New Testament debunks the Quran. So Galatians 1 verse 8, but even if we or an angel from heaven should preach a gospel other than the one we preached to you, let them be under God's curse. And in Titus 1:2, God says he does not lie. Therefore, Galatians 1 verse 8 debunks the Quran.
Okay, so the argument that God can't lie, how do you know that's not a lie itself? Because I could tell you right now, I can't lie under any circumstance. That doesn't mean it's the truth. You don't have to prove to me that the Bible is the 100% correct, which it's not.
Genesis 1:1 proves the Bible. I've already elaborated on this. You're asking how can God lie? Well, you have to go back even further and ask yourself, is God good?
No.
God is good.
No, he's not.
Yes, you do. So are you saying that God is evil?
God is malevolent, yes. He's a dictator. He's an asshole, in my opinion.
It doesn't have to be omnibenevolent.
It doesn't matter.
Is good
it doesn't matter if God is good or bad or not. It still makes him God. God in the Bible is a dictator. He is an asshole, and me personally, even if he did existed, I would rather go to hell than meet this God because he terrorizes people in his own book. If they make one mistake in their life, they automatically go to hell. And then he kills millions of innocent people in Noah's flood. And the Bible itself is illogical when it comes to biology, such as with Noah's flood and the creation story in Genesis. So no, I've already listed 5 points why your Bible is wrong and why God is evil. So no, that's already a fallacy to the Bible. It's a contradiction. You can't say God is good and then he kills millions of people.
There are two things there. So the first is that you're telling me that you want to drown in burning sulfur. That's up to you if you want to drown in burning sulfur. Our next point is you said that God is evil or could be evil.
He is.
God. So are you saying God is?
The God of the
evil?
Bible, yes. The God of the Bible and most Abrahamic religions, yes.
God cannot be evil because he is independent. He was independent from the start. Therefore, he has no one to be evil towards.
It doesn't matter. So he's evil towards his own people that he created. He murdered millions of innocent children, babies, and grandmothers when he made the flood. He murdered innocent people all over the world. He murdered millions upon billions of innocent animal species that were on planet Earth. So I don't. Yeah, he's an evil person. He's also wiped out entire cities if you didn't have a certain symbol above your house, and a lot of people to be slaves. Jesus says himself in a what was it? It starts with a D, not Deuteronomy. It was in one of the books in the chapter where he says slaves should be obedient to their masters as they would with God. They should worship him as they would with God. In multiple other Bible verses, the Bible says slavery is okay. The Bible states that homosexuality is immoral and that people who are homosexual should be stoned when it's been proven biologically that multiple times that homosexuality, bisexuality, and any sexuality is not determined. You can't choose to be one of these people. You can't choose to be transgender. You can't choose to be any one of these. Yet the Bible states that you can get to be stoned for something you didn't choose to be born with. The Bible states that you can have slaves, beat the shit out of them, but as long as they get up after 2 days, you're not going to hell. So please tell me how your God is not evil from any of these examples. Oh God, I need to take my
Noah's flood is justified because God is eternal. He knows the futures of these people.
Then why did he create them?
Make the assertion of innocence. You may make the assertion of innocence when in fact not all of them were innocent.
It doesn't matter what
So
they could have. No, that's an illogical fallacy in of itself. Because if God created these people, one, then He knew He was going to have to kill them later, so He never should have let these people live. And second of all, if He knew that these people were going to grow up to be criminals, like say the children, for example, why didn't he just make the town more peaceful? Why didn't he get rid of the anger inside of these people? Better yet, instead of killing all these people in a harsh way such as drowning, he could have sent them to heaven, told them how to live a happy life, and then they could have all lived in heaven forever. But no, he drowned them first, then sent them to hell for eternity, for a minute action that the Bible claims, a minute sin that happened once, and then you get to be killed for all eternity. It doesn't make any sense. And why does hell exist in the first place?
hang on, you're making too many assertions here. The first one is they are not put in hell for all eternity. Eternity meaning sepeternal. They are not put in there for a sepeternal amount of time. They are put in there for a finite amount of time. That's what it says in Revelations, is that the torment will last day and night forever and ever.
Yeah, forever
So
and
without the
ever. All day, all night,
forever,
for all infinity.
no, forever just means a long time.
No, it doesn't. Forever means forever. It's literally in
that's
the name.
Greek. Going back to the Greek, a time that will come to an end. So even 5 minutes can feel like forever. So when your computer is loading up very slowly, sometimes you may say to yourself, "This is taking forever."
No,
That doesn't
that's
mean it's taking for all eternity.
no, it doesn't matter, because these people were put in hell forever, not for 5 minutes, not for 10 minutes. The Bible, like you said, claims forever. Feeling like it's forever doesn't mean it's forever.
It says day and night. Without the presupposition of billions of years or millions of years, day and night is equivalent to 24 hours. Therefore, those will be tormented for 24 hours.
Okay, even
Not
if
for
it was
all
for 24
eternity.
hours, it doesn't matter if it's for 24 hours. He would still be an asshole to them. If he truly loved everybody, he wouldn't put them through that torment. He wouldn't put them through that torment because he could have just made them happier. He could have showed them the real way to live life and see how to be happy. Not put them through hell for 24 hours. It doesn't matter because you're making that assertion.
No, for those who are sent to the lake of fire, choose to go there. Because of Romans 1 verse 20, God has made his eternal power and divine nature known to everybody, so those are without excuse. So if you've been experiencing deja vu, or if you've been thinking about something and it happens simultaneously, that's God's eternal attribute communicating with you, and that comports with Romans 1 verse 20. And because of objective morality, this also comports with Romans 1 verse 20. So you are without excuse.
I honestly don't care. I honestly believe that no one should go to hell for even a day, just for one minute act that they did when God could make them holy and show them the light. And you're assuming that it was 24 hours.
You're an ape.
I would say that if God is all loving, then no, he shouldn't send people to hell in general.
God, it doesn't say that he's omnibenevolent.
Oh, so he's not all loving.
However, those who... He is love. It says that he is love. But it doesn't say that he is omnibenevolent.
Okay, so then he's not all loving. He doesn't love everybody. It's either he doesn't love everybody, and he can't be all good either. He's not all good. He's not. You can't make that claim because he sends people to hell for one minute fact. And even if it was even for being gay, which is something you can't control, he sends you to hell for it. Instead of helping you out and making you straight according to the Bible, what people want it to happen.
Homosexuality doesn't go against the Ten Commandments.
No, it's still a sin.
It leads to extinction.
Homosexuality doesn't lead to extinction.
it's just frowned upon, but it's not. It doesn't go against the Ten Commandments.
The Bible literally says you're allowed to stone homosexuals.
Those were the laws during that society.
It doesn't matter. That's when the Bible was written. The Bible says it itself. It still holds up today if God is real.
All I'm hearing is complaining. So this is if all you're going to do is complain, this is going to go in circles. I primarily debate the existence of God in general, and I go into theology. However, it's almost an hour and a half. So do you have any objections, or do you just want to give a closing before I end this recording?
Sure. It was great talking to you. I'm not mad. I'm just, I'm not mad at all. It may sound like it. I'm not. I'm really not. My closing segment is that you can't have fundamental forces of nature without a God, and assuming that there is a God, it's not the God of the Bible, because you have hundreds of other religions that state that their God is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And one last thing, if you even if God of the Christian Bible was true, he is not all good. He's not all loving. He would be a prick. He is an asshole because of the things he has done in the Bible. And that's my closing statement.
My closing statement will be very brief. I have a YouTube channel, Phillip, Kornelis, Aman. I primarily debate using logic with astrophysics on the existence of God. That would be my closing, and I will end this recording. Thanks for the debate, Rhino.
Yeah, no problem. Me personally, I'm still recording.
Thanks, guys.
I'm still recording, so if
ahead.
anyone has any questions or anyone else wants to talk, that's fine with me.
There was a few people that wanted to ask some questions of some of you two. I don't know which ones, but
yeah, I'll
could
record
do that if somebody wants to. I don't know if we should just move down to general and prevent the muting thing, or just. I guess we could just stay here. Actually, you could just type in VC text, and I'll unmute you if you want to ask a question.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions for me? Otherwise, I've got to go and export this video to upload it to my channel. I'm happy to answer questions.
Same here.
Justin has a question. I can unmute you, Justin, right now. I'm Canadian and can't help it. Sorry about that. I'll do an apology. You are unmuted. That's weird. You should be able to ask there. You should be able to unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. Two questions for Philip. One is, you talked earlier about God being omnipresent everywhere. I want to know that really applies to the convo. And two is that, if you're okay, could you say what your denomination is?
Non-denominational, omnipresent, meaning that God is inside the universe and he is infinite in size outside the universe. He is an immaterial God outside of energy/matter.
Okay, and I just want to ask Rhino. So, you said that you hate Christian God or whatever, but so if Christianity were to be shown true, or at least most probable, I should say, so like you see, I don't know, evidence for the resurrection. So would you still not believe as a result of your ethical views on the nature of God?
I only believe in what can be presented with facts, and if God was factually true and can be proven, I would still think God is an asshole. I really do. he's a dictator, and I would just have to live with that for eternity in hell. So, yeah. I mean, if the evidence was out there, then yeah. But it wouldn't be something like the resurrection because that's already been disproven. It wouldn't be something like Noah's Ark because that's already been disproven. With biology itself, not paleontology, just biology itself, you can disprove Noah's Ark. So, even if God was true and was proven to be true, the Bible would be wrong about almost everything.
Last question. So, what do you think about theistic evolutionists?
You mean I would say that they are progressing. And it also disagrees with their own Bible. Like, if you're Christian and you believe in evolution, which means that you at least think the Earth is 3.5 billion years old, then that would contradict the Bible, which would mean that the Bible is wrong about something. Any other questions?
Does anyone have any questions for me before I go? Okay, if anyone wants to get a hold of me, just message me.
Degodian, you're unmuted. You can ask a question if you wanted to.
Yep.
Guess not.
Well, Philip, it was
someone
great.
else has a question. Blue skies. I will unmute blue skies. Go for it.
Yo, Philip, what do you think of Muslims?
They are suppressing the truth. Galatians 1 verse 8 in the New Testament debunks the Quran. The safety net for the Muslim is, well, how is God Jesus? Genesis 1:3, God said, let there be light, and there was light. And then in John, Jesus says he is the light of the world. So if you extrapolate that back, Jesus would have to be the Holy Spirit and God. He is the creation of the world. That puts Jesus as being God. And then the other safety net for Muslims is that, well, the Bible is corrupt. There is only one version of the New Testament and multiple versions. Sorry, there's only one version of the Old Testament and multiple versions of the New Testament because of money. To claim a copyright, you need to change at least 10% of the context. That's why there are inconsistencies with the New Testament. However, to reiterate, there is only one version of the Torah / Old Testament. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to get your opinion, that's all.
Okay, so there's some people who can't chat, and they asked the question, why did you keep asserting stuff? And then when asked to, where it keeps moving here, Rhino holds you to it, you just asks you to demonstrate it, you just reassert it.
What did I assert?
Well, when you make a claim, like proving that there has to be a God, or saying that you claim that there has to be a God, and then when you're asked to demonstrate that there's truth to that, you just reassert it instead of actually coming up with an argument.
I didn't make that jump from the immaterial to God. I made brute fact that for the immaterial to manipulate matter requires an omnipotence. That is a brute fact. If you reject that, then the burden of proof is on the opponent to demonstrate how is it not for the invisible to interact with the material, not omnipotent. There's no getting around that.
I think what people look for is a demonstration of that to be true before it can be accepted. Well, but anyways, that was the question. I'm not here to debate you. So.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well,
you explained it. Go.
Well, in Genesis 1:27, it says that we are made in God's image.
Yeah.
So to elaborate on that, when we to demonstrate this, when we close our eyes and visualize an image, it takes an immaterial cause to produce a material result. And that image in our mind, we can push further and further away from us. So that would explain his omnipotence.
Well, who's to say that the Bible's true, though? You're using the Bible as evidence. How do you know the Bible's true?
Because, I don't have to use the Bible. A consciousness.
No, you just did, though.
A consciousness and an omnipotence ties in together to be omnipotent. There's no other mechanism that can be omnipotent. You need a consciousness as a starting point.
Yeah, I think we should move on because to the next question, because I think
closing our eyes.
I think we should just move on to the next question.
Yeah, okay. Anyways, like I said, I'm not here to debate you, but Hack there wanted to ask a question, so I'm going to unmute Hack right now. You were being a bit noisy there with your mic. That's why I muted you again, but go for it, Hack. Hello?
To ask this to Philip.
You're really quiet.
Does the Bible claim to be scientifically accurate?
Yes. In Genesis 1:1, God created matter. And Genesis 1:3, God created energy. And matter can't create more energy. First law of thermodynamics.
Doesn't it say that God created winged animals and sea creatures together? And according to modern science, we know that. Actually, I won't debate this in Q&A.
Yeah, I missed that last portion.
I won't debate this in Q&A. I guess someone else can ask the question.
Okay. In the text, anyone else want to be unmuted to ask a question? No.
Okay.
Nothing
Well, I'll head off now.
All right. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thank you, Philip.
Yeah. Awesome.
Have a good day.
Awesome. Okay. See yous. Bye. See ya.
Bye. If we want to, we can move to general, I guess.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go cool off for a minute, actually.
Okay.
So, this is my last opening statement. I would like to thank Looper and Philip for coming to get this debate together. I appreciate it very much. I hope to be in more future debates on this server. And thank you for Boris for moderating and everyone who asked a question. And you can find me at multiple social media platforms. Just print the word TheSumatranRhino. Look me up on YouTube. This video will be posted either in like 15 minutes or in an hour. And yeah, email me or come talk to me on Discord if you have any questions. And that's a wrap. Goodbye, everybody.
All right. Hey, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Talk to you later then.
No, I can answer a question.
Did you happen to listen to any or take part in any of his YouTubes? Philip's YouTube?
No, I've never seen his YouTube channel before. I didn't know about it until today.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he tried to debate me, and I turned it down because that's all his YouTubes are about. He just reasserts when you ask him why.
Right.
It's almost not worth it. You just end up running in a circle. That's why I decided not to debate him.
Right. I see where you're coming from. Well,
Anyway,
yeah, like I said,
I'm
if anyone has a question, just talk to me, DM me about it. Yeah, I'm gonna go cool off for a minute. I'll see y'all later.